Whether anyone, any point of time where you're attacked physically or something?
In press freedom, India ranks very low.
Means
Maybe
those
equal.
babies will die. Are you people sufficiently compensated in terms of salary? Is there any way that we know, okay, this means credible, this way to verify? Welcome to Officers Podcast. Today we have a guest, a household name, not only in India, amongst diaspora. He is one award-winning journalist known for the ethical journalism. From my childhood, I am seeing him. In fact, when I was preparing for the civil service, I had to rely on for my current affairs, I had to rely on authentic news. So, definitely, yes, if he reports, if he writes, it will be always authentic. So, today we have with us an award winning journalist, it's none other than Sam Daniel, Bureau Head, reporting from Tamil Nadu. Yes, welcome, sir. It's a pleasure. First of all, I thank you so much for joining us. We know that you're a very busy person. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm on the other side today. Looking forward to my interaction with you. Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir. So, when you started having journalism in your mind, was it your childhood ambition? What was your ambition?
My childhood ambition originally was to become a teacher. My mom is a teacher, and somehow I developed an interest towards teaching. I wanted to become a college lecturer. So my academic pursuit was towards that. I finished my master's and then my MPhil in English. I became an English teacher later. But my interest towards media or journalism began in the late 1980s because we belonged to the Doordarshan era. We didn't have these many cable or satellite news or television channels at that time. And my only window to the world at that time was the World This Week program by Pranoy Roy, who founded NDTV with his wife Radhika Roy. And that helped me understand what is happening around the world from an Indian perspective. Many young Indian journalists were based or reporting from, say, cities like New York, London, around the world. And that actually, I think, in an unconscious way, inspired me to develop an interest towards storytelling. Maybe I didn't know about journalism in that sense at that point in time, but to report, to tell a story, that was my basic interest. And then at that point in time, during the breakfast shows in the morning on Doordarshan, there used to be a person called Deepak Vora, a very well-known bureaucrat those days, and he used to host the breakfast show. He was very, very articulate in English, and that gave, besides news, many interesting interviews with guests, and the way he was able to speak flawlessly, very smoothly. That also, I think, attracted me towards media. But after I finished my graduation, maybe we were not well informed those days. We didn't have internet to be able to Google search and check universities offering journalism. My parents thought since I'm good in English, I should be doing my graduation in English. So I chose BA English Literature. And then I continued with my English at the master's level. I went to MCC from Salem Arts College after my UG. I took up teaching actually. For 5 years, I was teaching English in different colleges. The last 4 years was in Kodaikanal Christian College in Kodaikanal, where fortunately, I was also asked to handle language aspects to the media management program in that college, a kind of a master's journalism program. I didn't study journalism, but I was good in my English teaching. So I used to watch hours and hours of BBC from my hostel room and take notes how they interview, how they tell stories, so that I could give lectures on the communication, the language aspects of journalism. So my formal entry into journalism in that sense began during my teaching career. By then, I also created opportunities. For example, I started a college monthly newsletter. It used to be called The Voice, and I used to write for that, encourage students and faculty members to write. So, my interest towards journalism, although I didn't become a journalist, in a way, I was trying to use my talent and create opportunities to continue in some way do some journalistic work. So that also helped me to brush up my talents. I was teaching for 5 years and then I met Jennifer Arul, who used to be the bureau chief of NDTV in Chennai those days. She had come as a resource person to give lecture to English teachers. We exchanged cards and after 3 months, she calls me, Sam, I know you teach journalism in your college. We are starting a Tamil bulletin with Vijay Television. NDTV is tying up with Vijay TV for a Tamil bulletin every day. Can you send a student for? So we sent one boy, he was chosen. Another boy, he was chosen. She wanted one more. We sent a girl, she was taken up. She asked for more. Unfortunately or fortunately for me, at that time we had only 3 students available in that master's media program. So I said, we don't have any other students, but I am interested. So that's how my shift from classroom to newsroom began, from teaching to journalism. So that's my story of how I started or what inspired me to shift towards journalism.
So you were interviewed by Madam Jennifer Arul?
Yes, the first interview was with Miss Jennifer, and we used to have Mr. Narayan Rao. He passed away a few years ago. He was the administrative head, one of the founding members of NDTV. And then we were flown to Delhi to be interviewed finally by Mr. Dr. Pranoy Roy there in Delhi.
Oh.
And then we had a kind of a week-long training at the NDTV headquarters in Delhi, and then we were sent to the streets.
So what was your first news coverage?
Interestingly, my first news coverage in Madurai was about a Madurai girl cracking the civil services.
Oh, wonderful.
Because we had some 2 weeks time before the channel was, before the news broadcast was launched. So we had done the story. This young lady from a very middle class background who used to live at Tirunagar in Madurai. So we interviewed her as the first story. We did a story. Unfortunately, that story did not go on air because it was by then 2 weeks old. When we launched the news bulletin, then our editors felt, Sam, this could be slightly dated, as we call it in news. But that was a very memorable story for me because a positive story about a young girl from a very humble background cracking the civil services. I'm sure she must be an accomplished officer by now, 20 years ago.
By any chance, do you remember her name?
I don't remember her name now, but I should probably look at my diary to check. But yeah, a very young lady at that time.
Okay. So the first news item didn't get
On air.
on air. So how was your feel?
I think I understood. It was a learning experience. Sometimes news, if it's not given immediately, it becomes stale. And so we had to apologize to the family. They also understood. And then it became a kind of it happens sometimes sometimes because of other news developments, your hard work sometimes goes waste in a sense.
So one should not worry that first itself gone because you are more than 2 decades you have spent in journalism.
I wasn't disappointed. I was disappointed, but that did not really demotivate me in that sense. I took it in the stride, and it also helped me to learn how we can retell the story without making it look stale. That was a learning experience. Now I would not have done that. You can rewrite the script and take a different angle and make it look fresh. It's possible now. But at that time, I was very young. I didn't know the tricks of the trade in that sense.
So what was the second news item? Do you remember?
Second story, it was about the internet, actually. The abuse of internet by youngsters.
Okay.
In the year 2000, we used to have so many browsing centers.
Yes.
Private browsing centers. Computers were not that popular to own computers for middle class families. And the browsing centers, I found, were increasingly used by youngsters or groups of friends to view pornography. So I wanted to expose that. So we went to various browsing centers. It was kind of an investigative story in Madurai. We covered visuals because it was a challenging story. We can't reveal the identity of the individuals, but you have to tell the story. So we then spoke to the owners of the browsing center to make sure we don't reveal the place where it is happening, win their trust. And then we had a nice doctor who was able to give a perspective on the psychological aspects of watching pornography, how addictive it can be, how it could cause some kind of a damage to one's emotions, one's belief, and the other repercussions in life. And that story was well received because as a young journalist, we didn't have hidden cameras those years. We used to have an ambassador car hired by a company. So we used to park the car in a location near a browsing center, shoot the people going in and going out, then go near the center, explain to them and visual. I mean, the person who's watching also should say yes for the shoot. It took some 3 or 4 days, but ultimately the story came out well. In the year 2000, at the advent of internet centers, to do a story like that was something well received.
So, because we always see you on television, how you feel, because you also at times will see those news
That's
items.
right.
How's your feel?
I watch myself on TV with a sense of critical evaluation of myself. Could I have done that story better? I'm very particular about my pronunciation. Have I mispronounced something? And have you left out something? For example, be it any interview, be it any story, you make, especially live interviews, because you have to make sure you don't give only the positive side of the story, but also ask critical questions. It can be a minister, it can be a bureaucrat. So I always make it a point so that the viewer will know, okay, here is a journalist who's asking both both sides, questions from both sides. It doesn't become a PR exercise for somebody, but you also ask critical questions. So you can always enjoy yourself seeing on TV, but I watch it with a great sense of responsibility so that I see whether I can improve watching that every time and make sure I don't repeat mistakes if I found something. Or then you feel more confident that if you've done something right. And yeah, it makes you happy, but it's also, I always look at every story, every interview with so much of trepidation, that things could go wrong. Can you do it right? So that you prepare well, you do your research well, and if it comes out well, it's happy. But you never turn complacent. You go with good preparation, good research, so that nobody looks at you and says he is found wanting. That kind of a thing.
Even now, also you
I
do
that even now. Every small interview, even if it's for a 2 or 3 minute live on television, I may look natural on TV, but that confidence comes from the kind of hard work and preparation you put behind that. How to start, where to shift, how to summarize, how to bring in the other perspective, make sure both sides are represented, make sure you're factually correct, make sure, that kind of a thing. And sometimes television can be challenging because you get only 2 minutes time for a live interview for the reporter. You have to be wholesome, accurate, and also balanced. Give the other perspective also. So it's important. Say, for example, recently I interviewed Ms. Kanimoli, the MP, after the Parliament passed the Women's Reservation Bill. And being a woman MP, it's important to get her perspective. She was very happy. But I also wanted to put the question of, will the DMK, which is demanding implementation of this particular 33% reservation right away from the 2024 elections, will the DMK on its own start allotting 33% of seats for women? I asked the question because it's important. You claim or you demand the government to do this, but would you at your party level start doing this? Because nothing stops you from implementing it. But she gave a good answer, saying that, see, if it is earmarked as a constituency designated for women, then the competition is only between women, among women. But if DMK alone is giving, or one party alone is giving 33% reservation for women, still they will have to compete against a popular, a strong male candidate there. Then there is no level playing field. So unless it is uniform, it is followed by the way it is designed, it will not have the desired impact if just one party follows it. But my point was to ask that question, that why, what stops you from implementing it right away instead of waiting for the government to do it after 5 years, after 2 elections. So it's important we bring in the other side also, and it's up to them to defend or to explain their stand. And
So, as a journalist, you have to maintain a good relationship with politicians,
That's right.
bureaucrats, because they are the source
That's
for
right.
you. However, there may be several occasions you have to report a news against them.
that's right.
Won't it be little uneasy, and how you take it forward after that relationship?
It's a very interesting question. Number one, we never become personal friends of, at least me, with politicians and bureaucrats. But you need to maintain a good rapport with them, maintain a good trust with them, so that they know when you call them in an emergency for a breaking story, they need to take a call. Or when you WhatsApp them, they need to respond. So you maintain a healthy relationship, a rapport with politicians and bureaucrats. But they know that Sam will not misquote me. Sam will not manipulate what I say. Even if it is a critical news on me, Sam will come to me for my explanation. I make sure they trust me for that. So even if it is a critical story on a bureaucrat or on a particular political party or a politician, they know that I will definitely give them a chance to defend or deny or rebut whatever they have to say. And their story will obviously be, in that sense, balanced. So I maintain that. You make sure whatever I report, you can be absolutely sure that it will not be one-sided, it will not have any vested interest, or it will not, and I wait for them to respond. And only if they say on record they don't have to, they will not respond, then I add in the story. So that way, they believe in me. So there have been instances where when you interview bureaucrats, especially it can be collectors, it can be commissioners from a corporation, they know we come for civic issues where people complain. It can be during the floods, shortcomings in terms of non-implementation of, say, stormwater drains in Chennai. So they know that we are coming based on shortcomings seen on the ground or flooding or inundation. But they still talk to us because this is an opportunity for them to explain from their point of view. What is the challenge? Why couldn't they finish it? Or what is being done to... So when they trust us that when a story goes or written by or published or telecast by Sam, they will know for sure that it will not be one-sided. Secondly, we don't go to them for any favors. We don't go to them for any we don't even receive any compliments from them. This is Diwali time. Ministers send baskets of... they are simple. I mean, they send in good gesture. But we as a policy tell them very politely, as a policy, we never accept gifts. So that way, we also draw a line that we shouldn't be even remotely or tacitly be obliged to them in any way. But professionally, as long as they do ethical journalism, balanced journalism, giving them equal opportunity to defend, to deny, to rebut, then I think you maintain their trust and they would love to still speak to you.
Today, yes, Sam Daniel known across. But you started your career long before. At least in initial years, have you faced, because you would have done some investigative journalism, someone could have got affected, whether any point of time where you attacked physically or something, any...
In press freedom, India ranks very
Low.
low in terms of journalist safety, in terms of other aspects surrounding the life of a journalist. But fortunately, in Tamil Nadu, things are a lot better, I should say. But I had a issue in the year 2002, I think, when I was a very young fledgling journalist. We had reported a story based on stringer footage. We didn't go there and cover it ourselves, but it was sent to us by a stringer in Uslambatti area in Madurai. They used to have a temple ritual where young couples who did not have children for a long time, when they get a child, they come and fulfill a vow in that temple. The vow was they pray to God that if we get a child, we will come and bury the child, the newborn baby, in a 1 foot deep trench. They will cover it with sand and fulfill the vow. That's the vow they make. So there was a ritual where on camera it was captured. Children, newborn babies, maybe 2 weeks old, 3
Means
weeks
those
old.
babies will die.
They won't die, but there is a possibility of children dying.
Okay, they'll again remove.
They'll
the
remove.
baby.
They will wrap the baby in a white cloth in the presence of the temple priest and the gathering there. And as a ritual, there will be a trench ready there. They will place the child, the baby inside, cover it with sand, and then after a minute they will take away the child. But child could die because there was a minister who was witnessing that. He didn't do anything. Everything was on camera. When we telecast that story, it became a major discussion that night on the prime time bulletin. And Ms. Jayalalitha was the chief minister at that point in time. She, number one, immediately sacked the minister for having been a kind of a mute spectator there. Secondly, she also banned that ritual. At that time, although I did not myself go to the village, the villagers had printed my photograph and put posters that this journalist should not be allowed inside the village. They thought perhaps we had come there ourselves, filmed it and telecasted, but that's not the case. We had taken from a stringer, but it became a national headline and it brought about so many changes. Because of the ban, because of the sacking of the minister, they got wild. But it stopped with that. There was no physical threat. There was no telephone call to me. I've done many number of stories from Uslambatti village later, including stories of caste discrimination there and things like that. But nobody attacked me or something. But we also take many precautions when we do such investigative stories. For example, we have done some stories on sand mafia. Then we tell the police that we have our own protocol in NDTV, for example. So we follow that and we make sure that we follow that protocol in terms of safety, who to alert immediately, that kind of a thing. But otherwise, I have not received anything like a threat.
At any point, you have put in, I think, 23 years or so.
Yes.
Any point where you so stressed and thought, better leave journalism?
There was one phase. Say, for example, when I became a television journalist, at that time we didn't have these many channels. We had our own way of identifying stories which will be interesting for national audience. We didn't really bother about the routine, regular news developments. We may get some 10, 15 developments happening in Madurai or Chennai every day. But we do stories which could be interesting for national audience. It could be politically important. It could be a human interest story. Or it can be a bureaucratic apathy which demands urgent attention to bring relief to individuals or communities like that. But there was a phase when new channels started and they started reporting each and everything. They wanted to make a news of every single development. That shook us up because we were known to be very, very selective. I'm not saying wrong in that kind of reportage, but that made a news of everything, even an insignificant thing that was given a spin and that was made into a headline. So that was suddenly, for some time, we lost direction. We tried to switch to that side. We had our own difficulties. You may be working on a story, suddenly you'll get a phone call, can we do that story there? Then you leave this and go there. It became a logistic nightmare also sometimes. And at that time, I found myself under stress. Uh, should we continue like this?
Go back to
You
teaching.
don't mind working hard. You don't mind doing good research and working on good stories. But to follow somebody else and do something where your heart is not there, there was a phase of 2 or 3 years. And then we understood that I think we changed track and got back to our old school of journalism, and we continued with that again ever since that. But that particular phase, I thought it was stressful, and because it would give you a sense of maybe you missed that news item kind of thing. When for years that kind of news was not a priority for you, when every insignificant thing suddenly becomes the news, then you have a feeling that, come on, what do? I missed this, that kind of a thing. Because you're not tuned to that kind of reportage, Then I found, okay, maybe we're not set for that kind of journalism kind of thing. Yeah, that time I found it like that. And that was also a time when we had the world economic turnaround happening, economic downturn happening, because of which the downsizing happened. When there were 3 or 4 teams in the bureau, it became 2, ultimately it became 1 team, which means what 4 people used to do earlier, you handle as a single person. Then you prioritize, okay, we can't do these 3, only 1 of this weekend, that kind of a thing, That also added to the pressure. But over time, I think we got used to that, of what we call as one-man armies now. We got used to that, and it works well.
I always wanted to know, are incentives paid to the journalists for breaking news?
For journalists, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
A journalist is now, the first channel is breaking.
Okay.
Means that journalist is given some...
We don't have any such entity, for instance. We have our own assessments, evaluation, where you are evaluated, and based on the ratings or rankings, you get promotions, you get your monetary increments. But so far, we have never had on the basis of breaking news. But when you make your own self-assessments, you list, I had done so many exclusives, I had done so many breaking stories and things like that. But I've heard from friends in a few other channels, where they give a kind of an incentive, or they give a kind of a point system kind of thing, when you break a story before 20 minutes of others flashing. I've heard people say that. I've not experienced it myself because we never had it in our system. But I've heard friends from other channels say that they have a kind of an incentive system if they break a story before a particular period before others do. Then that particular reporter gets, in the long term, maybe in that assessment year or in that half-yearly thing, he or she may get a kind of an incentive. But I've not changed jobs, so I really don't know how it works in that sense. But this one, I'm sure a few friends have told me, because in Chennai, we have a very good culture of sharing of information among English journalists. At one phase, things were not that transparent sometimes, because we never expect friends to share information of exclusive stories. Say, for example, we are off day. When you look at your group an hour later, you would know what are the things that have happened, and if you are interested, you can take leads from that, you can verify and you can flash it. But at some point, things were not that forthcoming. Then we understood that some channels have this kind of a system that if they break it much in advance, much before others do, then they get a kind of incentive. So if they share it in the group, everybody will break it simultaneously. So then that was a kind of that's when I learned about that.
Okay. Journalists, 24/7, 365 days. Are you people sufficiently compensated in terms of salary?
Yes and no. There are many well established companies who pay very well, but that's not the norm. At the regional level, there are small magazines, there are small publications who are just surviving. They may not get much of ad support, they may not get much of revenue, they may not get much of circulation. But if you look at the national media, I think I would say we are reasonably well paid. But I should also caution youngsters who aspire to become journalists. If money is your primary concern, money is important, but if you're looking at aiming at that kind of a high paid job, then not everybody will be that well paid in journalism. Here, many of us work because of our passion to tell the story, passion to be part of the exercise to tell the truth to the people. And money sometimes becomes secondary. This job is so addictive, this job is so, makes you so much involved that it makes you work overtime beyond your working hours, be it your off day, working day, weekly off, whatever. It gives you that energy because you have that thrill of telling a story, the thrill of breaking it first, the thrill of verifying it and telling the truth to the people. That's the calling. So if money is my thing, I should have probably quit a long time ago. For instance, in my case, because of the economic downturn, for almost 10 years, we didn't have our usual increments. But still, we continued to work for the organization because of the good journalism we did. But had it been other youngsters, they would have been hopping jobs every 2 or 3 years because every time you change your job, you get a better designation, you get a better pay package, and your economic growth is much faster. So the bottom line is, there are organizations that pay well, there are organizations which are struggling, but it's a call you take. Whether am I taking up this job for the sake of money or for the love of the work you do, and then you should decide based on that.
If some youngster wants to take up journalism, so you were telling money should not be the criteria when they decide. Now, whether they have to do journalism and graduation, or anyone, say you haven't done journalism,
Yes.
but you're a wonderful journalist. Now, yes, any other person who's good in English or say Tamil, whichever, or any like Hindi, Telugu. Now, whether they can take up journalism, what is the path they have to, how they have to go?
I think now increasingly media houses look for graduates who have pursued journalism as an academic program. You need not study journalism as a 3-year degree program. You can be from any field. It can be engineering, it can be arts, it can be science. But if you decide to take up journalism, probably then you can go for a specialized 1-year program. There are institutes which, for example, it can be like the Asian School of Journalism in Chennai. It can be like the Symbiosis in Pune. It can be like the Manipal in Karnataka. It can be like the Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi, where any graduate can join that program, and they have a very 9 or 10 month old program, long program, where they train you to work and think the way the industry journalists do. They have their own in-house television studios. They have in-house magazines and newspapers being churned out every day. So after the 4 or 5 month long academic program, they send you out to the streets, make you do stories, write stories for digital version, for the print version, for the television version. So after that, you become ready for the industry. That's one way of doing it. Some prefer studying journalism as a degree, BA journalism in colleges. That's also fine. The only difference between studying in a specialized school like the names I mentioned and the regular 3-year university academic program is that not all colleges have a good infrastructure to give you hands-on experience. Their teachers may be brilliant, but they may not have the infrastructure to make you write stories, to make you report on camera, to make you write a package for a digital platform like that. In that scenario, such students should take up internship opportunities. Even though the college may not insist on that, make sure every semester break you have, you establish contact with a newspaper, maybe you can take turns, one television, one newspaper, one digital. Take opportunities and create opportunities so that you get to know how news is made, news is collected. You will also get to know about the various other interesting options. It's just not reporting. You can be in graphics, you can be in, for example, if it's television, you have so much of production work also. You have so much of production work, copy editing, checking of scripts, being on the desk like that. So we'll see whether you are attracted towards any of those openings also. And also create opportunities to write. Now everybody has a smartphone. You can have your own YouTube channel. You take up a story, write a good story, get it published. If you take up an internship, if you're lucky, the publication may give you a byline. So when you go for interviews, you can show that. There are so many citizen or community or what we call as local neighborhood newspapers, like Mylapore Times, Annanagar Times. Even for that, you can be a regular contributor. They'll be happy to take your writings. So if you create opportunities, when you go for a job interview, they have clear samples to see, to know about your quality of writing. It may not be perfect. You can have your own YouTube channel, do some interviews like this. You may have a sports achiever in your school or college. You may have an interesting speaker coming to your college. Interview them, put it on your social media page. So all these things, number one, will help you to improve your skills in the 3 years of study in college. And it will be a perfect portfolio for you to show employers that you have done all this work. So compared to other children, other students who may not have that kind of a work sample to show, then you get a better chance to be employed. So create opportunities, go for internship. If you're lucky, if you can even go for a 1-year specialized program in such institutes.
If someone interviews a national TV journalist, will they get a job? I'm asking about myself.
You should give it a try. You do a good job, yeah. And now, for example, another opportunity is that besides full-time jobs in established media houses, freelancers who do it for passion, they do a brilliant job because you're not bound by the regulations or the hierarchy like in an established setup. And if you're still able to follow the journalistic ethics, and many of the big breaking stories all over the world in the last 10 years were done not by established houses but by freelancers, by independent journalists. So technology now offers you that liberty, that space, and that possibility. You don't have to be part of any established organization to do good journalism. And for many, it works also well monetarily. If you regularly contribute like this, be a podcast, be a social media, a YouTube interview kind of thing, there are people, if they like your work, they are willing to pay you for that. They are willing to subscribe as a paid thing. There are opportunities available in plenty. So I think youngsters particularly, I would say they should think beyond a job. If your calling is journalism, if you're so passionate about that, then the opportunities are unlimited. Right from your school days, the college days, start working on that. Start having your own digital presence in some way. Build on that. Establish yourself as a credible brand. And I'm sure in the long run, you'll be able to do wonders as a journalist.
Sir, you were telling that, yes, today a lot of journalists, they can use social media. It's good. Now I feel everyone is a journalist. All carry our mobile. Yes, there is a social media to post. Now, it's good from the citizen's point of view, freedom of expression. Again, from the same citizen point of view, there's so much information. How, as a citizen, we can understand which is a credible one? Because for the same news, different perspectives based on their vested interest. Is there any way that we know, okay, this means credible, this way to verify?
A brilliant question. The bottom line is everyone should look at every message we receive on WhatsApp or social media with a big suspicion that it could be fake news. 95% of what we receive on our social media, including our WhatsApp, including what we receive from responsible people who we think they are trustworthy, all of them are either unverified, fake news, or disinformation or misinformation. Misinformation means I may not know it's fake news. I may not know it is a mix of genuine news and fake news. I may believe it's a credible news. I may share it without any ill intent. That's called misinformation. Disinformation is something I'm conscious of the fact that it is fake news. It's not verified news. But I actively promote that deliberately because I have a vested interest in that. It can be from a political party, it can be from a political leader, it can be from an individual like you and me. I may have something against you, I share with my friends, talking bad about you, talking something wrong about you, which is not correct, which is not true. So we should have that thumb rule that 95% of what we see on social media could be unverified news or manipulated news. How to identify? If you find something without a source, say for example, if I share something from an established newspaper, then you know it has appeared on the newspaper, then you know it's factually reported by that particular organization or by that news agency. If there is no such link for that, or there is a link which doesn't have any credible or well-known name attached to it, you should immediately alarm a doubt of suspicion. Thirdly, if something is written so flawlessly, again you should your flags should rise. Fourthly, if you find grammatical errors which doesn't look like a professional writing, then again a reason for doubting it. There are other ways of checking it. Okay, before forwarding it, take a key phrase of it, what the article says, go for a search engine option. It can be a Google check it. That key phrase search will give you some clues. Sometimes somebody may have written about that article that it is fact checked, it's not true. It's fact checked, it's true. Then you will know whether it's true or false, true or fake. Second one, often we get pictures which make us believe it's a true news. Say for example, when it's heavily raining in Chennai, somebody will send in a teachers groups or students groups, Pudi Talamurai into Palligal Vidamurai. It may be fake. It may be from last year. But they give you names of such credible news organizations to make you believe it. So, but still, you can't go by that. In that case, you go to their website, you go to their Twitter handle and see whether they are reported. For such breaking stories, normally they are immediately alerting on their official social media handles. That's one way of checking it. If you're very, very particular, there are simple tools available for fact checking. Fact checking is not rocket science. For example, there is, if you get a picture which you think is going viral and people believe it, but you have a doubt, you save that picture, go to Google for example. If you click on images, you will see one camera symbol on the under the bar on the Google search images thing. Click on the camera, upload this picture, what you think you want to be fact checked, and check for the results. If it's a fake picture, you will get umpteen number of other options connected to this picture. Somebody may have written about it, somebody may have given the original picture before it was manipulated. That research will help you to find out the story behind that picture. And then you can easily bust it, whether it's a fake picture. Because nowadays, videos and pictures manipulated, they become so credible because when we see it with the picture, with the video, we believe it's true. And these tools could help you to fact check it. And now every such newsworthy thing can be easily checked online. If it's from the government, you can check on the government websites. If it's from the police, check it on the police website. And you can make them some calls if you have a doubt. But what happens is that every one of us is guilty of promoting fake news because we don't bother to verify it. We think that the other person would have verified and shared with us, which the other person never did that. The other person would also have thought the person who sent him or her would have verified. So we have become perpetrators of fake news without realizing the damage we cause. So even if you receive something which looks fantastic, written very in a fantastic way, unless you are sure it's true, don't bother to forward that. When you forward that, then you become peddler of fake news. That's very, very important. So 3 thumb lines. If it's very well written without a source attached to it, if it's faulty or if it's very grammatically poorly written, these things should immediately strike you to think it could be fake news.
Now, you have 23 years of service. Now, at any point, you reported on something thinking that it is authentic, but after one day or after an hour, you realized, no, it was not correct. Has it happened?
It has happened 1 or 2 times. We normally have a system of verifying it from 2 different sources. So chances of we getting it wrong, unless those 2 sources are wrong, will be very, very remote. In one such incident, there was a Diwali time explosion of crackers, and more than a dozen people had died. See, when we get information from primary sources, sometimes we don't bother to check it again with a second source. By primary source, what I mean is that when there is an explosion, you call the SP, or you call the district police office, or you call the special branch office or the IAS in that district, depending on the jurisdiction. If they confirm, then there is no reason normally to go for a second verification. But we require to normally still go for a second verification. But sometimes, with years of experience, you tend to overlook that. This was during my initial years as a journalist when I reported. The number of people who died, they reported to be, there was a discrepancy in the figure. It took some time for me to understand how even the primary source can be wrong. Fortunately, we didn't take it on air. Okay. But what happened is that, say for example, the local police station tells me, say for example, 12 people died. Okay. Then when I checked with another police source, he tells me 10 people only died. Then I understood the police station mechanically records what they hear from walkie-talkie. Okay. It's quite possible sometimes when people are taken to the hospital, some will get better in the hospital, and the figures coming from hospital will be more authentic than the figure that comes from the police station at that stage, in the initial stages. Ultimately, the police station will correct the figures. But the police station, sometimes what happens is, if there are 15 people taken to the hospital, there is a possibility the police station recording all 15 to be dead, whereas after the people reach the hospital, if 2 have survived, then the numbers will change. So there was one such situation where there was a discrepancy, and that was a learning experience for me. Even if it is the police who confirm the numbers, it's always better to go for a second verification. So now sometimes the SPs or DIGs will be very, very busy during a major crisis. They may not be able to answer your call at that time. So we normally go for the grassroots police station or the SB office number. Then I evolved another system of my own, going through another round of verification to make sure that you get the right numbers. The risk is that you can always say, at least 5 dead. And then if the numbers go up, you can increase it. You can't say 15 dead and then say 10 dead. That will lose your credibility. There have been such information. One interesting example I'll give you. How sometimes even the primary information could be wrong. Recently, this happened 2 or 3 years ago. A factual thing. Kamal Hassan, he had tweeted one night, late in the night, close to 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, saying that fire at my house, all of us are safe. Thank you for your concerns. When the actor himself is tweeting, there is no reason for you to doubt. But I called the fire office. Was there a fire at Mr. Kamal Hassan's house? He has tweeted. He's laughing at me. Sir, அவருடைய பக்கத்து வீட்டில் தான் fire. There was fire only at his neighbor's house. But smoke entered his house. And we rushed there and we sorted everything, but there was no fire in his house. And what do? Kamal Hassan has tweeted, fire in his house, he is safe. He's thanking people for the concerns. But the police say there was no fire. Actually, I should trust what the police say, what the fire department say, because they say our team went there and everybody was flashing. So I told my office, this is what is happening, we should carry both. So I said, Kamal Hassan says fire in his house, but fire department, fire officials deny. They say there was fire only at the neighbor's house. And I carried both versions. Okay. Then I thought, what could have gone wrong, something. Then later I realized, sometimes we don't know who tweeted it. Okay? Especially such high-profile leaders, they may have their own social media teams to post that message. It's possible Kamal himself had tweeted, or it's also possible he told somebody on the phone to tweet something, but it was received it wrong and he tweeted it wrong. It's possible. So I thought, then it was a learning experience for me. How even if someone tweets, it's fine to mechanically quote them and flash it, but it's also important we do our own independent checking. Say, for example, for argument's sake, a VIP is there. He was traveling in a flight. He lost the phone on the flight or at the airport. There was no password protection. Somebody has taken his phone. If somebody tweets something, it will look like he tweeted, but the fact is somebody else has done it. So even if somebody tweets, technically it's possible that somebody else has done that. Right? Another possibility, sometimes people could be not in the best of their moods. Sometimes people could be angry. Sometimes people could be drunk. There are various reasons. And what they type in those moments may not be the ones what they actually intend to share.
True.
That's also a possibility. Then another funny example, I'll tell you. This happened when Mr. OPS was in charge of the AIADMK. He was the number one of the party. And he tweeted saying that somebody asked him, it seems, will you consider alliance with the BJP? The tweet said, before elections, we will decide. Okay, which means we
Not yet decided?
Yeah, no, it appeared as if we have set a mind.
Okay.
But it will be formally announced before elections, kind of. That was the kind of sense you got when you read the tweet. But having followed DMK and ADMK for a long time, this is not the way they operate. They normally conduct a high-level meeting, the executive council, where they decide, or they would authorize the party leader to take decisions on their behalf. One person doesn't announce that way. So I found something fishy about it. Then I called the spokesperson of the party. Sam, you're right. That's not what he intended. I think there's some miscommunication. In another 10 minutes, we will give a corrected tweet. So I told my office, other channels are flashing it, but you don't flash that because it's not true. Exactly it happened. 10 minutes later, they gave a corrected tweet saying, no, what he meant is there's no need to talk about that now. Let elections come, then we will decide, kind of thing. So sometimes when it helps you, your presence of mind and your common sense will reveal it to you that that's not what they mean. And it could have been easy for me to just flash it. It's a headline. ADMK all set to forge an alliance with the BJP. But in 10 minutes, my report would have been wrong. Whereas when you take the extra effort to cross-check it, when your mind tells this is not something normal, then it helps you to wait and do it right.
2004, December 26, when tsunami struck.
That your work brought a difference to your community.
I can see often you becoming emotional when it comes to your work. Any news item, some coverage you made, after that you were so scared for backlash.
When Ms. Jayalalitha was the chief minister,